She has no scent. She has no place among us. The words echoed through the Silverpine Royal Hall, and for a moment, every wolf in the room went silent. Evelyn Carter stood beneath the crystal chandeliers with hundreds of eyes watching her, waiting for her to lower her head, waiting for shame, waiting for her to disappear. The royal scent ceremony was supposed to reveal the strongest Omega candidates in the kingdom. Noble families had traveled for days, bringing daughters whose scents filled the hall with roses, winter flowers, and rare spices. Each Omega stepped forward, and each one was judged worthy of standing beside the future Alpha King. Then Evelyn's name was called. The room changed. She was not a noble daughter. She was not dressed in silk. She was a healer's assistant who spent her days caring for injured wolves and forgotten creatures in the lower wing of the palace. She knew exactly why people were whispering before she even reached the center of the room. The scentless Omega, someone murmured. Why was she invited? Evelyn kept walking. She had heard those words her entire life. No scent, no status, no future. But she had also learned something important. People often decided what something was worth before they ever took the time to understand it. The royal examiner placed a hand over the ceremonial crystal. Omega Evelyn Carter, he announced. Step forward. She did. The crystal remained completely clear. No color, no reaction, no scent. A quiet laugh moved through the crowd. Lord Lucian Vale, the royal council advisor, smiled as if he had just proven a point. A disappointing result, he said. An Omega without a scent cannot form a proper bond. It would be irresponsible to consider her for any royal position. Evelyn looked at him calmly. I don't remember asking for a royal position. The answer surprised the room. Even the guards exchanged glances. Most people apologized when standing before the council. Evelyn simply stood there. At the highest platform, Alpha Prince Adrian Whitmore watched her carefully. He had expected fear. He had expected embarrassment. He saw neither. Adrian had spent years learning how to read people. Every noble smile. Every false compliment. Every hidden ambition. But Evelyn Carter was different. She looked at him like he was a person before he was a prince. That unsettled him more than he wanted to admit. Then something impossible happened. A low sound came from beside the throne. Orion, Adrian's ancient silver wolf, lifted his head. The entire hall froze. Orion had ignored every Omega presented to the royal family for years. He had rejected every candidate chosen by tradition, every perfect match approved by the council. But now he walked down the steps, slowly, deliberately, straight toward Evelyn. Whispers turned into silence. Evelyn looked at the wolf approaching her and quietly said, You know everyone is staring at us, right? Orion stopped in front of her. His silver eyes studied her for a long moment. Then he lowered his head, not in submission, in recognition. Adrian felt his heartbeat change. The bond inside him stirred for the first time in years. Impossible. That was the only word he could think of. Because the Omega the entire pack had rejected was the first person his wolf had ever chosen. And everyone in the kingdom had just witnessed it. The entire Silverpine Royal Hall was still watching Evelyn Carter when Orion finally lifted his head. For a few seconds, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. It was as if the whole kingdom was waiting for someone powerful enough to explain what they had just seen. The royal guards looked toward Alpha Prince Adrian Whitmore. The council looked toward Lord Lucian Vale. Even the noble families who had laughed moments earlier suddenly remembered they were standing in front of the future ruler of the pack. Evelyn slowly looked down at the silver wolf standing in front of her. Are you always this dramatic? She whispered. A few nearby guards almost smiled before quickly remembering where they were. Orion simply blinked at her like he had expected that answer. Adrian noticed something he had never seen before. His wolf was calm. Not controlled. Not forced. Calm. For years, Orion had been a powerful presence inside him. A constant reminder of the instincts Adrian had to balance as the future Alpha King. But now, for the first time, there was no resistance. No tension. No warning. Only certainty. The royal bond had reacted to Evelyn Carter. And that fact terrified the council more than it surprised them. Your Highness, Lord Lucian said carefully, stepping forward. Surely we are not allowing a ceremonial reaction to decide matters of leadership. Adrian's eyes moved toward him. Be careful with your words, Lord Vale. The room became quiet again. Adrian was known throughout Silverpine Kingdom for his discipline. He rarely raised his voice because he never needed to. His authority came from control. But Evelyn noticed something beneath that control. Confusion. He was not looking at her like a prince judging an omega. He was looking at her like a man trying to understand something that should not have been possible. The ceremony was dismissed shortly after. The noble families left with endless questions, and the council remained behind to debate what had happened. Evelyn expected to be sent back to the lower palace immediately. Instead, a royal messenger arrived at her door before sunset. The Alpha Prince requests your presence in the Eastern Garden. Evelyn stared at the message. Requests, she said. Not orders. The messenger cleared his throat. His exact words were that you should come only if you wish to speak. That surprised her more than anything else. In the Eastern Garden, Adrian stood beside the old stone fountain with Orion resting nearby. Without the crowd, without the throne, he looked less like a future king and more like someone carrying a responsibility too heavy for one person. I owe you an apology, Adrian said. Evelyn raised an eyebrow. For what? The ceremony was not your decision. No, he replied. But I allowed my court to treat you like you were less because you were different. Evelyn looked away. She had expected arrogance. She had expected excuses. She had not expected honesty. Most people do not apologize for things they benefit from, she said. Adrian was quiet for a moment. Then perhaps most people are not trying hard enough to become better leaders. The answer stayed with her. But Evelyn was not ready to trust him. Not yet. Your wolf chose me, she said. That does not mean your kingdom will. Adrian looked toward Orion. My kingdom has followed traditions for hundreds of years. Then he looked back at her. Maybe some traditions need to learn they can be wrong. For the first time that day, Evelyn saw something unexpected in the Alpha Prince. Not power, not pride, a willingness to question everything he had been taught. But before either of them could say more, a royal bell rang across the palace. A council emergency had been called, and Evelyn realized the moment of recognition had not made her accepted. It had only made her the center of a storm that was just beginning. The emergency council meeting began before sunset, and by the time Evelyn Carter entered the royal chamber, she already knew one thing. She was no longer invisible. For years, being unnoticed had protected her. People ignored the quiet Omega healer who worked in the lower palace. They walked past her in the halls. They forgot her name. They never wondered what she could do. Now every person in the room knew exactly who she was, and most of them were not happy about it. This cannot be decided by a wolf's reaction, Lord Lucianvale said as Evelyn stood near the entrance. The future of Silverpine Kingdom cannot depend on unusual circumstances. Adrian Whitmore sat at the head of the table, listening carefully. Around him were the leaders of the pack, the royal advisors, and the elders who had shaped the kingdom for generations. Evelyn noticed something immediately. Adrian was not ignoring them. He was studying every word. He was not simply defending his own position. He was trying to understand the danger behind their concerns. Evelyn Carter has no royal background, one elder said. No noble family. No scent. How can the pack accept a bond that does not follow tradition? The words were polite, but the meaning was clear. They did not see her as a person. They saw her as a problem. Evelyn stepped forward. If the pack only values what is familiar, then how does it ever recognize something new? The room became quiet. Adrian looked at her. There it was again. That strange confidence. She was standing in front of people who could change her entire life with a single decision, yet she was not trying to impress them. She was simply telling the truth. After the meeting, Adrian found her near the Palace Wolf Sanctuary. Orion was resting beside the fence, watching them both. You should not have challenged the council like that, Adrian said. Evelyn continued organizing healing supplies. You mean I should have stayed quiet? I mean they are looking for reasons to reject you. She turned toward him. They already rejected me before I spoke. Adrian had no answer. Because she was right. For years, the pack had decided that scent was the first sign of worth. They believed it showed compatibility, status, and destiny. But Evelyn had spent her entire life proving that what people could not sense was not always what mattered most. Why did you not tell them you were afraid? Adrian asked. She paused. Because they expected me to be. That answer stayed with him. Later that evening, Adrian watched from the palace balcony as Evelyn cared for an injured young wolf near the gardens. She was patient, gentle, focused. She never treated the animal like something beneath her. She treated it like something worth understanding. Orion appeared beside him in his wolf form. You knew before I did, Adrian quietly said. The silver wolf looked away. Adrian almost smiled. You are enjoying this, aren't you? Orion gave no answer, which somehow felt like an answer. But beneath the humor was a deeper truth. The bond between Adrian and Evelyn was growing stronger. He could feel her emotions more clearly now. Her determination, her uncertainty, her loneliness. And for the first time in years, Adrian understood what scared him most. It was not that Evelyn had changed his future. It was that she had revealed the parts of himself he had spent years hiding. Then a message arrived from the northern border. Several pack leaders were questioning Adrian's ability to rule. Rumors had already spread. An alpha prince influenced by a scentless Omega. A future king choosing emotion over tradition. Adrian folded the letter slowly. Evelyn watched his expression change. What happened? She asked. He looked at her, knowing the answer would affect everything. The pack is asking me to prove that I can still lead. Evelyn glanced toward Orion. And how do you plan to do that? Adrian looked back at the woman everyone had dismissed. I do not know yet. It was the first honest answer he had given in years. And somehow, it was the first answer that made him feel like a true alpha. The northern border reports arrived 3 days after the council meeting, and the atmosphere inside Silverpine Palace changed completely. The whispers that once followed Evelyn Carter through the halls had become louder. They were no longer simple rumors about a scentless Omega. They were questions about the future of the entire kingdom. A ruler who ignores tradition will lose the trust of the pack, one message warned. Adrian Whitmore read the words again and again from his desk, not because he believed them, but because he understood the responsibility behind them. An alpha did not lead only the people who agreed with him. He led everyone, even the ones who feared change. Evelyn noticed the difference in him that morning. The confident prince who had stood against the council was still there, but now there was something heavier behind his eyes. You did not sleep, she said as she entered the royal archive with a tray of healing herbs. Adrian looked up. Is it that obvious? To someone who spends her life watching injured wolves, yes. A small smile appeared on his face before disappearing. You compare me to injured wolves often, because both of you pretend you are fine until someone notices you are not. For a moment, Adrian had no response. It was becoming a habit around Evelyn. She said things no one else dared to say, not because she wanted to challenge him, but because she simply saw him clearly. Later that afternoon, Adrian brought Evelyn to the old royal archives beneath the Eastern Tower. He wanted answers. If the pack believed scent was the foundation of every true bond, then he needed to understand why Orion had chosen someone without one. The archives contained centuries of Silverpine history, including records that most council members never discussed. Evelyn carefully opened an ancient book covered in worn leather. There are missing pages, she said. Adrian stepped closer. Missing? She nodded. Not damaged. Removed. Together they searched through the old records and found something unexpected. Hundreds of years earlier, there had been Omega healers known as silent bonds. They were not defined by scent. They were known for something much rarer. They could sense the emotional state of wolves and calm unstable bonds between alpha and their inner wolf. Adrian stared at the forgotten pages. Why was this erased? Evelyn did not answer immediately. She already knew the reason. Because people fear what they cannot control. The words were quiet, but they carried weight. Before Adrian could respond, Orion entered the archive. The silver wolf walked directly to the old book and placed his paw beside a symbol hidden in the corner of the page. Evelyn touched the marking carefully. A strange warmth moved through her hand. Not pain, not fear, a memory. She saw flashes of the past. Ancient alpha leaders struggling with their wolves. Old healers helping them find balance. A promise that had been buried over generations. When the vision ended, Evelyn stepped back. Adrian caught her before she lost her balance. For a brief moment, neither of them spoke. The bond between them felt stronger than before. Not because of scent, not because of tradition, because they understood each other. Then the moment was interrupted by a royal announcement. Lord Lucianvale had called for a public review of Adrian's leadership. The council wanted the entire pack to witness whether the future Alpha King was still worthy. Evelyn looked at Adrian. This is because of me. Adrian shook his head. No, this is because they are afraid of what you represent. She looked toward the palace windows, where the lights of Silverpine Kingdom stretched across the valley. And what if they are right? What if choosing me costs you everything? Adrian was silent for a long moment. Then he answered honestly. Then I will have to decide what kind of leader I want to become. Outside, The pack bells rang across the kingdom. A public confrontation was coming. And this time, Adrian would not be able to protect Evelyn from the judgment of everyone watching. The entire Silverpine kingdom gathered beneath the grand white towers of the royal courtyard, waiting for one decision that could change the future of the pack. Adrian Whitmore stood at the center of the platform, wearing the traditional black coat of the Alpha line. Beside him stood the council members, the noble families, and hundreds of wolves watching from the courtyard below. Evelyn Carter stood several steps away. Not beside him. Not yet. That was the part that hurt the most. After everything they had discovered, after learning that her missing scent was connected to an ancient bond ability erased from history, she still felt like the distance between them was a wall built by centuries of tradition. Lord Lucian Vale stepped forward first. His voice carried across the courtyard. Today, we ask a simple question. Can the future Alpha King place personal feelings above the laws that have protected this pack for generations? The crowd murmured. Adrian remained calm, but Evelyn could feel the tension through their growing bond. Not fear, not anger, pressure. The kind of pressure carried by someone who knew every choice would affect thousands of lives. Lucian continued. The royal mate bond has always been recognized through compatibility, through scent, through ancient signs understood by every alpha before him. Yet Prince Adrian has chosen an Omega who has none of these things. Evelyn looked down for a moment. She had expected judgment. She had prepared for it. But hearing the entire pack reduce her existence to one missing trait still felt different. Adrian noticed. He turned slightly toward her. Evelyn. She looked up. Do not let them make you smaller than you are. His voice was quiet, but everyone nearby heard it. The courtyard became silent. It was not a royal command. It was a reminder. Evelyn took a breath and stepped forward. I know what you see when you look at me, she said. You see what I do not have. You see a missing scent, a missing sign, a missing piece. She looked around the crowd. But you have never asked what I can give. Some members of the pack shifted uncomfortably, because they knew she was right. She had spent years healing their animals, caring for injured wolves, helping creatures that even experienced handlers could not calm. Yet they had never thought to ask why she could do what others could not. Then Orion moved. The silver wolf walked from Adrian's side and stopped beside Evelyn. The reaction was immediate. The pack understood what that meant. Orion was not following an order. He was making a choice. Lucian's expression changed for the first time. Just slightly. But Evelyn saw it. He had expected doubt. He had not expected loyalty. Adrian stepped forward. A leader is not measured by whether they follow old traditions without question. A leader is measured by whether they have the courage to recognize the truth when tradition is wrong. The crowd became restless. Some agreed. Others looked uncertain. Then one of the oldest pack elders spoke. If this bond is real, prove it. The words hung in the air. Adrian looked at Evelyn. She understood immediately. This was not about scent anymore. It was about trust. But before she could answer, Orion suddenly turned toward the eastern tower. His ears lifted. Everyone noticed. Adrian's expression changed. What is it? The wolf stared at the tower where the ancient archives were kept. Evelyn felt something through the bond. A warning. A hidden truth. Someone had been inside the archives. Someone had been searching for the same forgotten history they had discovered. The public challenge had only been the beginning. While the pack watched Adrian and Evelyn, someone inside the kingdom was preparing to reveal a secret that could destroy everything they had just fought to protect. The ancient archive doors were supposed to remain sealed after sunset. No council member entered without permission. No royal advisor touched the records without a witness. Yet when Adrian Whitmore and Evelyn Carter reached the eastern tower that evening, the first thing they noticed was that the lock was already open. Orion stood in front of the doorway, completely still. That alone was enough to make Adrian uneasy. The silver wolf rarely showed fear, but he understood caution. Someone was here, Evelyn said quietly. Adrian looked at her. You are certain? She nodded. The archive feels different. He almost smiled at the strange answer, but he knew exactly what she meant. Evelyn did not notice the world the way most people did. She noticed what others ignored. A missing page, a moved object, a change in the atmosphere. It was the same ability that allowed her to understand wolves when everyone else only saw behavior. Together, they entered the archive. The room looked untouched at first. The old books were still arranged neatly. The ancient records remained on their shelves. But Evelyn walked directly toward a small wooden cabinet hidden behind several history volumes. This was moved, she said. Adrian studied the cabinet. How can you tell? The dust line. She pointed to the floor. Someone cleaned around it, but not under it. Adrian looked at her for a moment. You notice everything, do you not? Evelyn gave a small smile. Usually things people hope no one notices. Inside the cabinet, they found the missing pages from the old silent bond records. But they were not alone. Someone had added new documents. Documents that described Evelyn's bloodline, her abilities, and the reason her scent had disappeared. Adrian read the first page slowly. His expression changed. They knew. Evelyn looked at him. Who? The Royal Council. The words felt heavier than expected. For generations, the leaders of Silverpine had known that scent was not the only form of connection. They had known about silent bonds. They had known that some Omegas carried abilities that could stabilize alpha wolves. But they buried the knowledge because it challenged the system that gave power to traditional scent rankings. Evelyn looked away. So, I was never broken. Adrian's voice softened. No, he stepped closer. You were hidden. That answer hurt more than she expected. Because being rejected was painful. But realizing the rejection had been built on a lie was something else entirely. Before they could continue, the archive doors opened. Lord Lucian Vale stood there with several council guards behind him. His expression was calm, almost too calm. I was hoping you would find the records, he said. Adrian's eyes narrowed. You knew they existed. Lucian did not deny it. Of course I did. Someone had to protect the stability of the kingdom. Evelyn stared at him. By pretending people like me did not exist. Lucian looked at her with a cold expression. By preventing chaos. Adrian stepped between them. You erased history because you feared losing control. For the first time, Lucian's calm expression cracked. You think this is about control? You are the future Alpha King. Your bond affects every wolf in this kingdom. If you choose incorrectly, everyone pays the price. Adrian was silent. Because that was the hardest part. Lucian was wrong about Evelyn. But he was right about one thing. Leadership carried consequences. Evelyn looked at Adrian. She could feel the conflict inside him. The prince who wanted to choose with his heart. The alpha who had been trained to put the pack first. Then Orion moved forward and stood beside Evelyn. Not as a challenge. As a reminder. Adrian looked at his wolf, then at Evelyn. I spent my entire life believing a leader had to have all the answers, he said quietly. Maybe a true leader knows when to listen. Lucian left without another word, but his warning remained behind. The council would not surrender easily. And now Adrian and Evelyn knew the truth. Their bond was not dangerous because it was weak. It was dangerous because it had the power to change everything. The morning after the truth was uncovered, Silverpine Palace felt different. The halls were quieter. The servants spoke in lower voices. The council members who once looked at Evelyn Carter with certainty now avoided her eyes. But Evelyn knew something important. Silence did not mean acceptance. Sometimes it only meant people were deciding how to fight back. Adrian Whitmore spent most of the morning reviewing reports from different pack territories. The discovery in the Royal Archives had created more questions than answers. Some pack leaders supported the idea of changing old traditions. Others believed the kingdom was being weakened by a bond they did not understand. Evelyn found him standing beside the large map of Silverpine Kingdom, surrounded by documents. You look like you have not slept again, she said. Adrian did not look surprised. He had learned that Evelyn always noticed the things he tried to hide. There are 3 northern packs asking for a formal explanation, he replied. And 2 southern families are demanding that the council investigate my bond. Evelyn leaned against the table. They are afraid. Adrian looked at her. You sound like you understand them. I do. That answer surprised him. Why, he asked. Evelyn looked at the map. Because when people build their entire world around one belief, learning that belief might be wrong feels like losing everything. Adrian was quiet. That was one of the reasons he trusted her. Evelyn did not simply agree with him. She challenged him. She made him see the world beyond his own position. Later that day, Adrian brought her to the royal training grounds. Not for a ceremony. Not for the council. Just for a moment away from the pressure of the palace. Orion rested nearby while Evelyn watched Adrian practice, controlling his alpha presence. She noticed something immediately. He was forcing it. You are fighting yourself, she said. Adrian lowered his hand. I am controlling my wolf. No, you are trying to silence him. The words landed harder than she intended. Adrian looked away. An alpha who loses control puts everyone at risk. Evelyn stepped closer. An alpha who never listens to himself does too. For years, Adrian had been taught that strength meant control, that emotions were weaknesses, that leadership meant carrying every burden alone. But Evelyn saw something different. She saw someone exhausted from pretending he never needed help. Orion approached slowly and sat beside them. Adrian looked down at his wolf. You agree with her, do you not? The silver wolf gave him a look that answered everything. For the first time, Adrian laughed quietly. It was a small sound, but Evelyn noticed. She had seen him command rooms full of powerful people. She had seen him stand against the council. But this was different. This was the first time she saw the person behind the title. Then the piece ended. A royal messenger arrived with urgent news. A group of young wolves in the Western Territory had started losing control of their instincts. The council immediately blamed the unusual bond between Adrian and Evelyn. They claimed the forgotten silent bond was dangerous. They claimed Evelyn's existence proved the old laws should never have been changed. Adrian read the message carefully. They are using fear. Evelyn looked at him. And fear spreads quickly. He folded the letter. Then we have to show them the truth. Before they could leave, another message arrived. This one was different. It contained a symbol from the ancient silent bond records. Someone had sent a warning. Someone who knew the old history. Someone who wanted Evelyn and Adrian to find the truth. But beneath the symbol was a single sentence written in faded ink. The bond was never meant to choose the strongest alpha. It was meant to find the one who could save the pack from itself. Adrian looked at Evelyn. For the first time, the future did not feel like something he had to carry alone. But somewhere inside Silverpine Kingdom, someone was preparing to make sure that future never arrived. The message arrived before sunrise. By the time the first light reached Silverpine Palace, Adrian Whitmore already knew the kingdom was facing a choice. Not a battle, not an enemy from outside the borders. Something more difficult. A decision about what kind of pack they wanted to become. The Western Territory had sent reports that several young wolves were struggling with unstable instincts. No one was hurt, but the fear was spreading faster than the problem itself. And fear always looked for someone to blame. The council had already made their decision. Evelyn Carter. The Omega without a scent. The impossible bond. The change they believed was threatening their traditions. They are going to use this, Evelyn said as she read the reports beside Adrian. Her voice remained calm, but Adrian could feel the tension behind her words through their growing bond. They will say this proves they were right. Adrian looked at the documents. And if I defend you, they will say I am choosing my bond over my duty. Evelyn looked at him carefully. Are you? The question stopped him. Not because it offended him, because it was exactly the question he had been avoiding. For years, Adrian had believed leadership meant choosing duty over everything else. But now he understood something he had never considered. Sometimes duty was not about protecting old systems. Sometimes it was about having the courage to change them. No, Adrian finally said. I am choosing what is right for the pack. Before they could leave, Orion appeared at the palace entrance. The silver wolf carried something in his mouth. A small piece of old parchment marked with the same symbol they had found in the archive. Evelyn took it carefully. Where did you find this? Orion turned toward the northern path. Adrian understood immediately. Someone had been leaving clues. Not to destroy them, to guide them. They traveled to an abandoned sanctuary hidden beyond the northern forest, a place once used by the ancient silent bond healers. The old stone building had been forgotten for generations. Inside, Evelyn discovered records that explained the truth behind her ability. Silent bonds were never meant to replace traditional omegas. They existed to balance the strongest wolves in the pack. They were partners, not symbols. They erased this because it changed the meaning of power, Evelyn whispered. Adrian stood beside her, reading the old words carved into the wall. A true alpha is not the one who controls everyone around him. He paused. A true alpha is the one who protects the connection between them. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The words felt personal, because that was exactly what Adrian had been learning. Control had always been easier than trust. Then they heard footsteps outside. Lord Lucian Vale entered the sanctuary alone. Evelyn immediately recognized the expression on his face. Not anger, not surprise, calculation. You followed us, Adrian said. Lucian looked around the forgotten room. I needed to see whether the rumors were true. Evelyn held the ancient records closer. You already knew. Lucian was silent. Then he finally admitted it. Yes. Adrian's expression hardened. You knew about silent bonds all along. I knew what happened the last time this ability became important, Lucian replied. I watched powerful families fight over control. I watched leaders become obsessed with what they could gain. Evelyn shook her head. So you decided everyone like me should disappear? Lucian looked away. I decided the kingdom needed stability. Adrian stepped forward. No. You decided the kingdom needed your version of order. For the first time, Lucian had no immediate answer. But before they could uncover more, another message arrived from Silverpine. The council had called an emergency gathering. They planned to force Adrian to make a final decision in front of the entire pack. Choose tradition. Or choose Evelyn. Adrian looked at her, and she understood what was coming. This would not be a private conversation anymore. Their bond, their future, and the truth about the pack would all be judged publicly. Evelyn took a slow breath. Whatever happens tomorrow, they will not see me as someone without value. Adrian nodded. No, he looked toward the kingdom waiting beyond the mountains. Tomorrow, they will see who we truly are. The entire Silverpine kingdom gathered beneath the royal banners, waiting for the decision that would define the future of the pack. The grand courtyard was filled with nobles, warriors, healers, and families from every territory. Everyone had come to see whether Adrian Whitmore would follow the traditions that had ruled their world for generations or step into a future no one had imagined before. Evelyn Carter stood beside him. Not behind him. Not hidden away. Beside him. That alone spoke louder than any announcement. Lord Lucian Vale stood before the crowd with the ancient records in his hands. His voice carried across the courtyard. The question before this pack is not whether Evelyn Carter is talented. It is not whether she has helped our wolves. The question is whether we are willing to abandon the laws that protected us for centuries. The crowd grew quiet. Adrian looked across the faces watching him. He saw fear, doubt, hope, everything a leader was supposed to understand. Then he stepped forward. For centuries, we believed scent was the only sign of connection, Adrian said. But we were wrong. The words shocked the courtyard. A future Alpha King admitting a mistake was something many had never witnessed. A tradition is not valuable because it is old, Adrian continued. It is valuable because it serves the people it was created to protect. Evelyn looked at him. She knew what this cost him. A leader like Adrian had been raised to never appear uncertain. Yet here he was, choosing honesty over pride. Lucian looked toward the council members. And if you are wrong, he asked. If this bond creates instability? Adrian answered without hesitation. Then I will carry that responsibility. The courtyard became silent. Not because everyone agreed. Because they finally saw the difference between power and leadership. Power demanded obedience. Leadership accepted responsibility. Then Orion stepped forward. The silver wolf walked between Adrian and Evelyn before the entire pack. For years, the kingdom had believed a royal wolf existed to prove an alpha's strength. But now everyone saw something different. Orion was not a weapon, not a symbol. He was a partner. Evelyn placed her hand gently against the wolf's fur. She felt the same quiet connection she had felt from the beginning. Not a demand, not an expectation. Trust. One of the oldest pack elders slowly stepped forward. The bond has chosen, he said. Not because of scent, not because of status, because of balance. The announcement did not erase every doubt. Change never happened that easily. Some members of the pack still struggled with the idea. Some traditions would take years to transform. But something important had changed. The truth was no longer hidden. In the weeks that followed, Silverpine Kingdom began rebuilding its laws. Omega worth was no longer measured by scent alone. Healers and silent bonds were recognized for their abilities. Young wolves were taught that strength was not about controlling every instinct, but understanding them. Lucian Vale stepped away from the council. He was not remembered as a monster, but as a man who allowed fear to guide him for too long. Adrian refused revenge. He believed a kingdom could not heal by creating new wounds. It could only move forward by learning from its mistakes. Months later, Evelyn stood in the royal gardens where Orion had first chosen her. Adrian joined her, no longer wearing the weight of the crown like armor. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Orion had not walked toward you that day? He asked. Evelyn smiled. You would probably still be arguing with the council. Adrian laughed quietly. That is possible. She looked across the kingdom below them. Maybe the bond did not choose me because I was special. Adrian turned toward her. Then why? Evelyn smiled softly. Maybe it chose us because the pack needed to remember what mattered. Years later, people would tell the story of the Alpha Prince who changed a kingdom and the Omega who proved that value was never something the world could measure for you. They would remember the crown, the bond, and the choices that shaped Silverpine. But most importantly, they would remember one simple truth. A true leader does not choose the person who makes them look powerful. A true leader chooses the person who helps them become better.